What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Hoops All In. If you guys are new, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel at Hoops All In on YouTube. Follow us on our social media platforms at Hoops All In on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And don't forget to subscribe to Keith's YouTube channel at Keith HAI. He does good work over there. So yeah, we got already have some off season, not really in the off season, but some off season moves that are happening. Desmond Bane has been traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Orlando Magic for not one, not two, hell, not even three, for five first round draft picks, four unprotected first round picks, and a pick swap for KCP and Cole Anthony. Man, Keith, when you saw this trade happen, what were your first initial reactions?
Man, I was surprised. I think that Desmond Bane is a pretty good player, right? We like Orlando hasn't, I forget the stat, but Orlando hasn't had a top 15 offense since I think before Dwight Howard was there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been like 20 years where like they just haven't had the best offense in the world. They got the two guys, right? Paolo and Franz. They've got Jalen Suggs, who's been hurt the past couple years on and off, but the biggest weakness was their um kind of their half court offense and their 3-point shooting. They brought in KCP they stole him from the Denver Nuggets. They paid him, I think, like 20 million for 2 years. Because that's pretty much what KCP is there. He's there to defend and give them some 3-point shots. KCP was kind of ass this year compared to like what he'd been doing. So they've been looped in so many rooms. Like I've heard LaMelo Ball, I've heard Trey Young, I've heard Devin Booker, I've heard all these scoring guards that maybe aren't the best defenders, but it doesn't matter because Orlando has enough to where they can hide a Devin Booker or a LaMelo if they need to because they've got Jalen Suggs, they've got Anthony Black, they got Paolo, Franz, Wendell. Like they've got pretty much everyone else on that team's a plus defender, but they just didn't have the shot creation that you would want. They even had some not as star name guys like Anthony Simons linked to them. Um, Desmond Bane was not a player I was expecting because Desmond Bane is more of obviously an off guard, more than a shot creator. Obviously, he can create a shot for himself, but he's not really creating for other people, if that makes sense. Unless he, again, like a drive and kick, which is one of the most used things in the NBA in current day. Um, so I like the fit, but man, when you talk about four unprotected first round picks, um, and here I just found what the picks were. So one of the picks is the Memphis number 16 pick for this year's draft.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Phoenix's first round pick in 2026. That's one of the unprotected ones. Which,
It's
if you
gonna be
know
a good
Phoenix,
pick.
they're about to trade Kevin Durant, and we don't know what that package is going to look like. We'll get there in this video, but about that. But we don't know what that team's going to look like, and I can't imagine with the way the West is going to look next year that Phoenix will be in the playoffs if play in next year. Um, a Magic 2028 unprotected and an Orlando 2030 unprotected. So those are the four. Those are the four unprotected. I don't know all the deals about the swap. I believe it's lightly protected, but um, and then obviously Cole Anthony and KCP were in this deal. I mean, the picks, right? The picks is the good part for a good Memphis. I don't really know what direction Memphis is headed in doing this because there were talks about right what this Jaren contract could look like, especially if he made All NBA or Defensive Player of the Year. He
Mm-hmm.
didn't do either of those, so it shouldn't be as huge as they were thinking. But you kind of just made a move like the Mikal Bridges trade, right? Mikal Bridges was a Brooklyn net. Uh, Brooklyn not great. And they did that so they could get picks because Brooklyn's not going to be good for the next few years. They want to get high draft picks, do everything like that. But you have John Jaren, and if I believe correctly, in the 2022 playoff, the Memphis Grizzlies were an super fun team. They were super fun, young, and they were a good team. They gave Golden State a run for their money. Um, but like, what is again? KCP wasn't that good, and Cole Anthony is a backup, and you have Scottie Pippen on your team. So I don't really understand the player part of this. So I don't really know what Memphis's end goal here is, because when you look at the West, and that's the conference that Memphis is in for the NBA, I just don't know where they're headed with that one.
Yeah. First of all, I'm gonna echo what you said. Desmond Bane is a hell of a player, but
Mhm.
there's no way in hell he is worth 5 first round draft picks.
Yeah,
There's no way in hell Mikal Bridges is worth 5 first round draft picks. So if KD or Giannis end up being moved, they're gonna at least command 12 first round draft picks. Because if you got below average all star players going for 4 or 5 picks, then you got a guy like Giannis and KD should go for 12 to 15, along with some janitors. But was this maybe in my opinion? I think that this trade was just out of desperation for the Orlando Magic because, like you said, they were pretty last on offense. And here's my thing with this too. I'm kind of like confused why they gave up all their picks on a guy that they could have probably got for just 2 first round picks, or maybe just for 1 first round picks, along with KCP and Cole Anthony. But you're gonna have to extend Paulo coming up soon.
yeah,
They just extended France Wagner to a big contract. I believe it was like what 5 years, 224 million.
I can
Okay,
find the numbers.
then Jalen Suggs, you just extended him 5 years, 150. You're taking on Desmond Bane contract, which he has 4 years, $163 million left. Jonathan Isaac, 5 years, 84 million. Not to mention Wagner's other brother, Mortz, is making about $11 million a year. Wendell Carter's making about $10 million a year. You got Goga Patatzis. I apologize if I butcher his last name. He's making about $8 million a year. The Orlando Magics are negative $42 million in cap space. And you're going to have to cough up at least anywhere from 250 to possibly 300 M's for your face of franchise and Paolo Banchero. So you're going to be, you're already strapped salary cap wise to say, okay, this is who we're going to go with to try to compete for a championship. This is not a compete for a championship roster.
Mhm.
Like, I don't get what they're trying to do, especially when you have Desmond Bane, who's the second highest paid on the team, and Franz Wagner is the first highest paid on the team. That's not gonna get it done. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. I get why they did it. In my opinion, I thought the Grizzlies won the trade because again, they're gonna have to re-sign Jared to a big extension. Not gonna be to what the money he was gonna get if he won, defensive player of the year, but he's still gonna be a sizable contract. You still have you have to offload some type of salary to kind of make it work. And I think, getting back Cole Anthony, who's a little bit younger, maybe not that much, probably like a year or two, and
Mhm.
you get back, KCP, like you said, he was asked last year for the Magic, but he's a veteran, has 2 championships, knows what it takes to win. He could be a voice in the locker room. Maybe that's what they're missing. They tried to do that with Marcus Smart being that veteran leader. It didn't work out. So maybe having KCP would kind of help. Those young bloods, those YNs, as everybody like to call it nowadays, in shape. But but we'll see. I mean, yeah, Grizzlies, in my opinion, they won the trade, but I don't know what the Orlando Magic GM is thinking because this isn't a championship contending roster unless they're not done making moves. Because if you want to kind of clear up some more space to re-sign Paolo, your face of the franchise player, maybe a guy like Jonathan Isaac who's making $15 million a year might get moved. Do you maybe looking at moving Weldon Carter, who's making almost $11 million a year? He might get moved. But if you do move those two guys, you're gonna try to get a center back. Especially we see what the Boston Celtics are gonna have to go through. They're gonna have to trade at least two out of their four or five players in their core. Drew
Mhm.
Holiday is probably not going to be back on his team next year. Same thing with Porzingis, and there's been talks about them, about other teams interested in trading for Derek Brown. But you got Holiday who's making massive money, Porzingis making massive money. That though they're not going to be back on his team next year. And next year we know for the Celtics is a retool year with Tatum recovering from his Achilles. So
Mhm.
they don't want to trade another players, but because the luxury tax bill is just so damn high, they have no choice but to do that. So it's a head scratcher for me. I understand it, but I want to give up the barn for a guy like Desmond Bane. Again, very good player, can ball, 19 and a half points per game last year, exactly what they needed. But they could have gotten him for less than what they gave up.
Yeah, I mean, they could have. I think that it would have had to been different players
Yeah,
instead to kind of match that value. But I think like Desmond Bane, again, great player. He is a guy that I think he could have been, and maybe he still could be, like a guy that's a one-time All-Star type like that. One of the better players to not make an All-Star game in the current NBA. But yeah, I don't think this team's a contender with that. I don't think their bench is amazing. Their bench is, I would say, relatively young now because you got rid of Cole, you got rid of KCP. Um, I mean, Anthony Black and Mo Wagner are kind of the two bench guys that are like, yeah, that's good, but like everything in the middle, like shooting guard, small forward,
yeah,
like they don't got a lot of wings that I'm in love with over there. I mean, Jonathan Isaac is fine where he's a defensive demon, but that's really all he is. And defense is kind of the last thing that that bench needs when you look at the starting lineup. Um, yeah, I don't know. Again, I think you also could have gotten a different player for either the same amount, either a better player, or you could have, like I don't think Anthony Simons would have costed that. And Anthony Simons is um not the level of Desmond Bane, but he can still create for himself and whatever. But yeah, team's gonna be expensive, man. Team's gonna be expensive. I think the best thing that they can hope for, I don't know Paolo needs to be re I think Paolo could be re-signed this off season. If not, he definitely needs to be next year. But hopefully Paolo takes it this year because Paolo has no incentives, right? He was an all-star last year, but he hasn't made an all NBA team because well, if you know, all NBA unlocks players to be eligible for a supermax. And
yeah,
again, when you give when Franz Wagner is guaranteed 231 million, and that's just guaranteed. That's not
yeah,
incentive based. That's nothing like that for a guy where I honestly I don't Franz I don't think should have got that because he hadn't proved that he should be that. But um hopefully he'll agree to that and it'll be less money than like say he balls out, he plays 70 games, he's eligible for awards and he makes all NBA second team. I don't know because Desmond Bane is a guaranteed 200 million as well. And
yeah,
again, you talk about guaranteed and not whatever their incentives look like. Um, again, I think it's a team where like if this team's healthy, God forbid injuries again, because this team had horrible luck with injuries this past season. But I think they could be a so they I think they'll be a solidified like they'll miss the play and they'll be a top 6 seed in the East with this move. Again, I don't think they're contenders. I think they can make some noise, but being a contender, I maybe because we just haven't seen it. I don't know, but I mean, it is a good that top four of Jalen Suggs, Bane, Franz, and Paolo is like a really good and interesting starting group. But again, the center, they haven't been in love with Wendell since they traded him in the Vucevic deal, however many years ago.
hmm
Mo Wagner was out with injuries as well. And then they had Goga Batadze doing, where he slid in and he was good, but those guys again aren't offensively really what you need. I guess Wendell and Mo are. They can stretch a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I think it is a good trade. I think both teams get Orlando gets what they need, but I think Memphis won because of the cost that they were able to sell him at.
yeah,
So I don't think either of these teams necessarily look at it and be like, oh, this is an F trade. Like if you were grading this trade, they get an F. I think it's like Memphis gets a B, Orlando gets a C, just because of what you had to give up but the player you got in return helps you. But yeah. Do you have anything to say with that before I move on to a couple things?
No, I mean, like I said, I wouldn't. I'd say the Grizzlies won because again, 4 first round draft picks, possibly 5, for a guy who's giving you 19. That's a
Mhm.
haul in my opinion, and especially they're picking 16 in this year's upcoming draft, along with 48 and 56. And it's supposed to be a deep draft, so they could get a very valuable player who can come in right away and help contribute to that team's playoff aspirations, and then a late second round pick of 48, 56. So who knows what they could get, especially till they have 4 future ones for next year, along with the year after that. So
Mhm.
I think the Grizzlies, in my opinion, they got more for a player that didn't demand that type of package. But that's all I'm gonna say to that. We'll see.
All
We'll
right.
see how
So
they
with
will utilize it.
yeah, so with the Durant stuff, we'll talk about quickly. The four kind of finalists that I've seen is Miami, is San Antonio, Houston, and Minnesota's been sprinkled in there, but it doesn't seem like Durant wants Minnesota.
No.
I have a what Minnesota offered up. They offered up Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, the 17th pick for this year, and then Rob Dillingham and or Terrence Shannon, they said.
And the son said no.
I think Durant said no.
Oh yeah, okay, because he don't. But hold on, that doesn't make any sense to me. Because why, if you're KD, why don't you want to play with the guy who looks up to you like an idol? Especially he swept your ass in the first round of the playoffs last year. I don't get it. Like you, Ant Man glorifies and talks high, nothing but high respect and admiration for KD. Looks up to him, and it's not also beat his ass. Not to mention he dunked on him multiple times in the Olympic practices. So
Yeah.
I don't understand why does KD not want to play with Ant Man? Does he not favor the cold in Minnesota? I don't get it, especially too. You go in there, you play with the guy who's not even in his prime, and a very good, strong, powerful forward in Julius Randle, and an arguable 6 man of the year candidate every single year with Nile Reed, and a very good defensive wing in Jaden McDaniels. You might just be the missing piece for them. Since KD likes to jump around, jump ship, and form super teams, I think that his best option, in my opinion, will be to go with the Timberwolves.
I
But
think there would be a lot of so I'm not the hugest fan of this trade for Phoenix either, because like you're getting Rudy. You want Rudy if you're gonna be contending. And like if Minnesota's trading Rudy, that means they got Ant, McDaniels, Randall, and Durant. They're not all those four aren't all starting because you gotta have a guard, you gotta have a center in there. So at least
unless
one of those guys is coming off the bench.
unless
And
they willing to put KD at the four, because KD can play some four,
but
and then
then
now
what's
it's like a
Julius
five.
Randle playing?
Maybe Julius could play the three, and
But then
then
you got Jaden McDaniels,
maybe
who
he could come off the bench. I don't know. Maybe it's a work. I mean, I would. To me, if I'm Minnesota, I wouldn't give up that. That would be the package I would give for KD, because again, KD's aging. He's going to be 37 this year. He might have 2-3 years left max in this league. As much as we shit on Rudy Gobert, he is a good in the regular season, good
yeah,
defensive big.
right.
So if I'm the Suns, I would have taken that, and then you could try to reroute Gobert for something else. But yeah, that's
Yeah,
just
I don't
me.
and then there's two parts of this, but I just saw this isn't necessarily the biggest thing, but Philly and Utah have discussed a trade that would send Paul George to Utah, and the Philly would trade back from the third pick to the fifth pick, and then Utah would get the third pick because they have the fifth pick. But I also saw something earlier today that said Philly seems set on running it back with Maxi, PG, and Embiid. But what's up with Ace Bailey? Ace Bailey just not
Yeah.
training out with it. Ace Bailey's just not training with any NBA teams, I've heard.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who his management. I don't know who his GM is. Who's in charge of his camp? Apparently, it's the same guy who looked after Sharif Cooper, and we saw what happened with his career.
Yeah,
Apparently, he wanted to get paid. From what I saw off NBA Central, he wanted to get paid to do a fucking pre-draft interview, which I've never heard no nonsense shit like that. If
right,
that is true, Ace Bailey, fire whoever the fuck you got running your business, because they are setting you up for disaster. Bro, workout. You're not in the league. You're trying to make it in the league.
right,
Your aspiration being a good player, but bro, conduct yourself like a professional. What the fuck are you doing?
right. And the things I've seen, like the mock drafts that I've seen, like I think ESPN, it was either ESPN or Bleacher Report put out one where they had Ace Bailey falling to like seventh or something.
Jesus.
Like it goes Coop, Dylan Harper, and then the only person I could see going over Ace Bailey is VJ Edgecombe. But
Mm.
even then, Ace Bailey I think has a higher floor. I'm not a draft expert yet. I got to get there because we're less than a week away.
Mhm.
But like I just don't understand why you're not. He declined the Philly workout, which right now it looks like that's the team you're going to as it stands, as we're
Yeah.
less than a week away. And then there was also something that said it didn't have any names, but it said a top draft prospect or something like that, or maybe a lottery prospect declined the Charlotte Hornets workout because he didn't want to play with LaMelo Ball. And obviously that's who people are pointing, right? Because of everything that's going on with Ace Bailey. But like,
Yeah.
has he really not trained with anybody? Like,
That's what I heard. I mean, but yo, this generation, especially, you gotta remember these guys are born in 2005, 2006. They're
mhm.
like around your age, man.
Am I
And this,
2005?
yeah, and this new generation of incoming NBA players, you gotta remember too, these are the same players that are getting paid millions in NIL money.
Right,
So
exactly.
they already have this kind of entitlement, spoiled mindset that like,
Yeah,
no, like I'm gonna dictate where I go. When it's like, no, that's not how it works. The team dictates where you want to go. If they like you, they're gonna select you. But it's like, nah, I don't want to play here. I don't want to play here. At the end of the day, it's only gonna be hurting your pockets because yeah, you still got the NIL money, but NBA money along with sponsorships is
right.
different than NIL money. That's like chump change. So
Right, which
I
I don't
don't
like.
I don't get it.
I almost understand. Like last year, Alex Sarr, right? Alex Sarr was the best prospect coming into last year's draft.
Mm,
But he said he didn't want to play for the Hawks, so the
yeah.
Hawks didn't take him. They took Reese O'Shea, whatever. Reese O'Shea, I think, was second in Rookie of the Year this year.
Mm-hmm.
But like, not working out and saying I don't want like anybody.
Crazy.
Like when you're not in the league and you're not like I could understand if you're Cooper Flag and you say, all right, I don't want to work with Charlotte because he's not falling to Charlotte.
Yeah.
But when you're like these teams are like Philly is third, Charlotte's fourth, Utah's fifth, Washington sixth, New Orleans is seventh. Those that's your range right now because you're not getting picked first
Yeah.
and you're not getting picked second because it's for like a top two draft right now. Like I just don't understand like if Ace Bailey said, "Oh, I don't want to go work out with the Bucks because the Bucks don't have a first round pick as of right now." Like again, sure, but these are teams in your range. These are where you're potentially going to spend the first 7 years of your career until you are a completely unrestricted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just don't I don't get that because Ace Bailey seems like a guy that when he gets there, he could really provide a punch, and he seems like he has a high ceiling.
Yeah.
So I that's just something I don't understand. Hopefully, something more comes out about that, but um,
But let me just say this for them: if he just doesn't want to go and play with the Sixers because he don't think he won't play enough, because obviously
right,
Paul George is going to be playing, that backcourt is already going to be full with Maxey and Jared McCain's come off an injury, bro. That's your time to really just get used to the NBA system, get used to the offense and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I get it. You want to come and make an impact, but this is not how you conduct business. But
right,
hey, like I said, them that NIL money just rotted their brains.
right, and it's like you don't want to play for Philly, but maybe Utah, and you where Utah, they don't know what the hell they're doing over there.
Yeah.
They're in basically year two of their
Mhm.
rebuild, and honestly, outside of maybe Walker Kessler, nobody's safe over there.
Mhm, mhm. No,
Um,
for real.
versus Philly, where I mean, sure, Philly, they have their issues, they have their injury things, Embiid, whatever, Paul George, but that gives you a better chance. Sure, maybe you're not going to be starting playing 30 minutes a game like some other top draft picks have or will this year, but like you can't be doing this or you can't be doing this already where you're like, nah, I don't want to go here, I don't want to. And
Exactly.
again, if that's not true, then my fault for even bringing it up. But I mean, the Philly thing is true. That's 100%. That came
Yes,
out.
yes,
But
yeah.
if this is him in Charlotte, which again, no names were given, and if he's legitimately hasn't worked out with anyone, while like Cooper Flag's getting interviewed by the Celtics and shit for no reason when the Celtics had the 25th pick or something, like you just gotta do this thing.
Mhm.
It's part of the experience. It's part of what I'm sure your dream has been since you were a little kid. It's like I just don't get that. That's something that's like I don't know. You gotta at least give a you gotta give yourself a you gotta give
Gotta
these
give a
teams a
damn.
chance to
Yeah.
know you. Like, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, again, we the draft is less than a week away. I gotta really do my homework on it
Same.
to because I know the guys up top, of course, but
Mhm.
when it gets past like pick eight, I might be struggling a little, but and then again, free off season NBA off season so weird where you'll hear rumors about KD and Giannis, and then boom, Desmond Bane gets traded. We're like,
Mhm.
we hear nothing about Desmond Bane. If
No,
anything, we
for
heard more
real.
about his teammates.
No, for real. That was like I said, I was just like, oh, interesting. Like it's a breaking news, but Apparently, according to Shobs, this is one of and Brian Windhorst, this is supposed to be one of the craziest off seasons the minute the NBA Finals
Right.
conclude. I don't know if you follow Bill Simmons, I think from the
A
Ringer.
little bit, yeah. He's a
He
Celtic guy.
Yeah, he's saying that apparently, according to him, I don't know if this is true, so take it with a grain of salt, that the KD trade to the Spurs is already done. They're just waiting to
Yeah,
announce it.
I
But then
saw
you hear
that.
other reports. It's like, no, the Spurs are going to hold off on trading KD because they want more, like, to see if they get a bigger package a la Giannis. But
Yeah,
then you hearing the Suns like, no, like they want a compilation of young players and draft capital. But then their asking price for KD has lowered.
right.
So you're hearing all
And then I'm
these
hearing
reports.
about Jaylen Brown to the
Yeah.
Spurs, and I'm hearing about Giannis. Those talks have mainly stalled. It seems like he might be going back, but teams are still talking like it's a, or at least reports are still coming out like people are still heavily pursuing. So like I just can't wait till we get like I'm telling you that first night of the draft might be when we see the KD trade get to go down because
Possibly, yeah.
KD is probably like I would assume Phoenix is trading KD to somewhere where they can get in the draft, like a
Hmm.
top 10 pick this year.
Shit,
But
maybe might be
I don't
San Antonio.
know. But I'm honestly, I'm only trading the second pick if for Giannis if I'm the Spurs, right? Like
Yeah,
Dylan Harper is one of those guys, and granted, you have Castle and Fox, but
but
Dylan Harper is like the second guy for sure.
here's the thing though. Can a Giannis and Wemby duo possibly work? Because that spacing is going to be awful. Giannis is going to have to be in the paint. Giannis likes backing down. Same thing with Wemby. Now Wemby can stretch, but Wemby is not going to be a 7'4" guy. He's going to be jacking up threes and jump shots. He
I
likes
don't
to be
know.
in the
He shot
paint
about
too.
9 or 10 this season
But
per game.
I don't think that's his game. I mean, he tried to extend his game, but that's not his game. So you're gonna have two guys in the paint. The spacing is gonna be all
And you got
ugly.
Fox and Castle who
Yeah,
are plus like Fox is fine at shooting. He's probably average if I had to guess, but Castle came off a year where his shooting wasn't the best. I don't think Dylan Harper I would assume is average or just below average from three. Um, I almost wish that if the Spurs are just going to take Harper and he's going to stay on this team, I almost
mhm,
wish what this team would look like without Fox, where you
mm,
have Harper and Castle starting together with what like because I don't know, it's just a lot. And then if they're bringing Chris Paul back, that's another guard that like Chris Paul not spacing the floor crazy like that. Hell, if he'll even play, but
true.
yeah, I don't know. It's super confusing. Like the people that try and predict where things happen, it's like, and this is the time of year where Shams is on his phone like 20 hours a day. Like
Oh
I can't
yeah,
imagine. Like it's got to be fun to like get to be the first person to know about this and break all the news, but like,
you
man,
get
I
no
mean,
sleep.
because you got to act the same for a Kevin Durant trade versus a 11th man on the team getting trade. Like they're coming to you and you're breaking the report for it.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, off season should be fun. I can't wait. It's a fun time, but
This is where the NBA insiders like you said, Shams and other guys who are at other local networks should be getting paid overtime. Shit, we should be getting paid overtime. All the news we about to be breaking too. I'm
yeah.
about to be breaking like, oh, this and that. Like,
Hmm.
man. But yeah, like we'll see what happens if Windhorse and Shams are correct. Is this supposed to be one of the craziest all seasons that we've seen in a long
Yeah,
time? We'll see. NBA is going to a new, new network and new channel along with Amazon Prime next year. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah,
Lakers are gonna have to do something. You expect, the Memphis Grizzlies are gonna probably continue to make moves. They already made a big move. You expect, teams like the Houston Rockets are gonna look to make moves. The Spurs, the Bucks might make a move. The Knicks definitely gonna have to make. They're gonna have to make a whole bunch of moves. Coaching
yeah,
search. So we'll see what happens with this off season. But yeah, we'll be tuned in. The minute the finals conclude, we're gonna have our phones. I was like, what's coming on? What's coming on next? So
hmm,
should be interesting. Should be very, very interesting.
yeah,
All right, guys, that's it. Thanks again for tuning into another episode of Hoops All In. If you guys are new, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And again, follow us on our social media platforms at Hoops All In on Instagram, TikTok, and X. Don't forget to subscribe to Keith's YouTube channel as well at Keith HAI. Also, don't forget to listen to the audio version of the podcast at Apple Podcast, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, or wherever you stream your daily or weekly podcast. For Ross Francois, Keith Bazin signing off. We'll catch you guys on another episode of Hoops All In. Peace.